Valley of the Kings. Valley of the Kings. Focus question. How can Egypt's past be revealed by studying the Valley of the Kings? Treasure beyond imagining. In November 1922, a British archaeologist named Howard Carter discovered the tomb of King Tutankhamun. Not only was this a new discovery in Egypt's Valley of the Kings, an area that explorers had thought was played out, it was the first tomb found with its royal seal intact. The tomb held more than 5,000 objects, many of them solid gold. Tutankhamun's gold funeral mask has become one of Egypt's most famous treasures. Tutankhamun was one of the least important pharaohs buried in the valley. His tomb was one of the smallest, with only 4 small chambers. Yet it held so many treasures that experts are still listing them almost a century after Carter's discovery. Valley of Kings. The Valley of the Kings houses the tombs of almost every pharaoh of Egypt's Golden Age, a period known as the New Kingdom. The New Kingdom took place during the rule of the 18th, 19th, and 20th Egyptian dynasties. It lasted from 1550 to 1080 BC. During these times, the ancient city of Thebes, now known as Luxor, was Egypt's capital and religious center. Thebes had many temples honoring the Egyptian empire's pharaohs, whom Egyptians believed joined the gods after death. However, a royal tomb required a remote location. A network of steep-sided valleys across the Nile River provided a perfect location. Tombs could be carved from the limestone found there. The valley's steep cliffs and single-axis point made it relatively easy to protect from robbers. The afterlife. To the ancient Egyptians, a pharaoh's tomb was important because it provided safe passage to the afterlife. A tomb protected the physical body, which ancient Egyptians believed could return to life after burial. After death, the body of the person who had died went through a 70-day mummification process to keep it from breaking down. Priests removed the mummified internal organs and placed them inside a stone box. Next, the mummified body was placed inside nested coffins that were in turn placed inside a stone sarcophagus. Carved from solid stone, the sarcophagus could weigh up to 9 metric tons, 10 tons. Egyptians believed the tomb also protected the pharaoh's spirit as it traveled through the underworld. Priests placed protective amulets, which they believed had powers inside the mummy's wrappings. Smells and prayers covered the tomb's walls and ceilings, and often the sarcophagus in long columns of hieroglyphs and images. Some were intended to restore the body to life. Others were supposed to frighten away demons. Hieroglyphs also provided information the soul might need for its journey to the afterlife. Ancient Egyptians believed the king's soul had to travel through the underworld with the sun god, Ra. Writing on tomb walls described the sun god's travels through the underworld and warned that dangers the soul would face. They also told how to overcome challenges such as demon-guarded gates and questions in the Hall of Judgment. Royal tomb held everything a king might need in the afterlife. Storerooms were filled with wooden models of equipment, such as boats and chariots. They held personal items such as makeup, clothing, and board games, and everyday items such as furniture and lamps. The tombs held treasures to enjoy, expensive gems, golden jewelry, and artwork. They even held things to eat and drink. Since the pharaohs would need servants in the afterlife, The tombs also contained hundreds of curved figures called septies or answerers. Each septi was curved with a spell to bring it to life to serve its master. Tomb construction. Most tombs in the Valley of the Kings have similar layouts. An entryway leads into a hall an Egyptians call the Passage of Ra, which is decorated with images of the sun god's forms. In many tombs, one room has a deep well cut into its floor. Some experts think this pit may have been intended to slow down tomb robbers or for protection in case of flooding. The tombs all ended in the burial room, which often had attached storerooms filled with supplies. Although they are similar, no two tombs in the Valley of the Kings are identical. Each was constructed and decorated according to the tastes of the current ruler up to a point. Even though tomb builders began while the king was still living, tombs took years to complete. Once the king died, the tomb builders had only 70 days to finish their work. That's when the mummification of the dead pharaoh would be complete and burial had to take place. If a tomb wasn't finished, workers might cut the corners to get it ready in time. Living paintings or rooms have finished. Sometimes the king was simply buried in a different tomb than the one he had been building. The appearance and layout of the tombs in the valley changed over time. Tombs built during the early part of the New Kingdom tended to be smaller than later tombs. Unlike later, straighter tombs, early tombs were usually built with one or two 90-degree turns. Experts suspect this change may have occurred because the Valley of the Kings was becoming crowded. A tomb built in a straight line was less likely to run into neighboring tombs. Tomb locations changed over time as well. Older tombs were usually at the bottoms of cliffs. Rainstorms would send water and earth down to cover the tomb's entrance. Later rulers usually positioned tomb entrances in lower-lying slopes. Experts think tomb construction started almost as soon as a new king began his rule. Selecting the tomb's location was an important first step. It was performed by high court officials and senior workmen. If they didn't make the right decision, they would have to stop work and choose a new location. More than once, the first choice was abandoned after workers had already begun cutting the tomb. The tombs had to be cut directly into the limestone bedrock. Work crews first dug rough passages using copper or bronze chisels, wooden mallet, and hand axes with stone blades. Then they painted a line on the tomb's ceiling to use as a reference point for measurements as workers continued to build the walls, ceilings, and floor. Once work had progressed far enough, specialists began to add decorations. Plasterers covered surfaces with white plaster. Scribes sketched hieroglyphs and figures, and a supervisor followed, making corrections. After corrections were made, artists would finalize the artwork, painting blocks of color and filling in the details. Sometimes workers carved away portions of a scene to make certain things stand out. Carving away the background left a kind of art called a raised relief. Artists carved details into the raised figures before painting the finished scene. Modern times. The United Nations named the Valley of the Kings one of the first World Heritage Sites in 1979. Over 1 million people visit the tombs each year. 18 tombs are open to the public on a rotating schedule, with the exception of Tutankhamun's tomb. Visitors can see any 3 of the open tombs with their entry ticket. Seeing Tutankhamun's tomb requires buying an additional ticket. The treasures originally found in Tutankhamun's tomb are now kept in the Cairo Museum. Unfortunately, the constant crowds have caused rapid temperatures and humidity changes inside the tombs. Mold now grows on some of the tall walls. People who accidentally touch the walls sometimes damage the ancient paint and carvings. The rotating schedule of open tombs gives the tombs occasional breaks from visitors and provides time for important repairs. Tomorrow's treasure. Today, the Valley of the Kings holds 63 known tombs, but more than one New Kingdom tomb remains undiscovered. The tombs of Ramses the
The eighth.
the eighth and Thutmose II, as well as several queens and princes of the 18th dynasty, have yet to be discovered. These rulers were most likely buried somewhere in the Valley of the Kings. The Valley of the Kings is one of the richest archaeological sites in the world, and experts think there are more treasures to be uncovered.